Well, alrighty. For those of you that are keeping up with me live, sorry for the delay. I'll be recording back-to-back episodes for Joshua and Judges. Even though I'm behind on my podcast episodes, I am not behind on the plan. I am still doing well on that. I hope you guys are as well. Life just kind of got busy. And the few nights that I was free to record a podcast, I just kind of forgot. And so it got away from me. So I'll record Joshua today, and then Judges I'll record tomorrow, and then I'm back on track. So I'm actually starting to read the book of 1 Samuel today, which I'm really excited about. We start to get into some of the king part of Israel's history. So really looking forward to the story of David, especially the first part of David's life. Once he becomes king, it starts to go a bit downhill. But he is by far, out of all the kings of Israel, definitely the best. So really looking forward to that. But we are not there yet on the podcast. We are in Joshua for this podcast episode. So I am, as I admitted, I am recording this late. So I'm already through Judges, about to start Samuel. So I'm just going to have to throw my brain back there. So Joshua, really good book. Joshua is one of the few characters that within the Bible doesn't have a lot of negative surrounding him. I think there's very few stories, one where they didn't seek the Lord before they attack somebody that comes to mind. But for the most part, Joshua is held out as a great leader. Now, the kind of the storyline, remember at the end of Deuteronomy, there hasn't been a prophet like Moses. So Joshua does a pretty good job, but he doesn't talk to God the same way Moses did. Moses would be face-to-face in his presence. So Joshua, still really good, not quite the level of Moses. And then by the time he passes away and Joshua ends, you kind of get the line of like, and people just kind of forgot and started doing what was right in their own eyes. And yeah, so we get the downward spiral that is Judges, which we'll talk about in the next episode. So when we last left the Israelites, they were on the other side of the Jordan River. Moses was given his speeches, and then he passed away. And now Joshua takes the story up, and they are going across the Jordan River. There's a cool story about and very big parallels to the Exodus stories. So they're ready to cross the Jordan. They bring the ark out, and the waters stop and build up, sort of just like how at the Red Sea, the waters are split. So you get a lot of these correlation stories that are really cool to compare and contrast. They get into the land, and then there's a bunch of conquering. That can be, so this part of the Bible, Joshua, Judges, and even into the Samuel Kings, with all the wars and the battling, that can be a hard part of the Bible to read, especially for us modern readers, especially if we're in the West, where war isn't something that we're used to. And so it's hard to, one, is God condoning this, or is God just using the results of this? Is it okay if the people are bad enough? We got all these kind of questions. To me, I don't struggle as much with this. Not that I would put down anyone who kind of struggles with it. For me, I just kind of view it as we've had stories in the past. Let's use Sodom and Gomorrah as an example, where God, in that story, he's going down, like he physically goes down to investigate. Is it as bad as what it's being told to us? Now, he doesn't need to go down there to do it. This is kind of so he can interact with Abraham, and he kind of views, all right, so is it really that bad? And talking to Abraham's like, hey, if there's 50 people, would you spare the city? Yeah, I'll spare the city. Oh, 45, 30, he keeps going down to 10. So God is willing to spare the whole town for 10 righteous people. Sorry, I've got my cat messing me up over here. So there is grace in how he interacts. Now, in Sodom and Gomorrah, doesn't sound like there were 10. And so the way I view it is the amount of pain, suffering, death, and evil that would continue to happen down the line would be far greater than wiping them off. So that was the idea of the flood at the beginning in Genesis. The violence and the detestable acts are just so bad, all of humanity gets wiped. Because if it just is left to continue, it will become worse than just wiping it all out. So that's the same with Sodom and Gomorrah. It's only going downhill. And so that's the same here. There's a few verses that come up where I think this is back before Israelites get the land. He's promising Jacob the land of Israel, and he says, but yeah, just not yet, because their problems haven't risen to the level that they need wiped off. And so there is this notion that earlier in history, yep, they're bad, but not bad enough to be wiped out. But by the time Israel is ready to move in, their evil is bad enough that he's ready to use the Israelites as a flood to rid the land of the Canaanites, Amorites, and all of them. Now, they don't actually do that. There's a lot of stories that may say they obliterated and defeated all, and yet the people are still around. So the Israelites don't do what they're supposed to do and completely wipe out the other people. So now you have them living amongst the Israelites, which just kind of spells disaster. And in fact, I can't remember if this is in Joshua, could be skipping ahead to Judges, but I think it's in Judges where God said, yeah, you didn't defeat them, so I've decided to leave them there to test you, because I told you they were going to lead you astray, and now they're still here. So yeah. But Joshua seems like a pretty good leader. He does a good job of delegation, order. I think this would be really good for like a men's Bible study to go through Joshua. And fun fact, Joshua is the same Hebrew name as Jesus. In the Hebrew, it's Yeshua, and that's kind of what Jesus was, Yeshua. Yeah, I think it's shortened, but that's kind of how you get the Jesus, Yeshua. When you move from different languages, the names change. So you have these two people that kind of have the same name, Joshua and Jesus, but through all the different translations, because the New Testament was mostly through Greek and all that, you get Jesus and you get Joshua. So it's kind of interesting, even though it's the same root Hebrew name. There's quite a few names like that. So as you're reading the Bible, and especially this part of the Bible, we got a bunch of names for people's names, city names. My advice, especially if you're reading amongst a small group or something like that, read with confidence. You're not going to pronounce it right. No one pronounces it right. We're not speaking the native language. So you see a weird name, you're like, I don't know how to pronounce it. Just confidently read it out, and no one's going to correct you because they go, oh, well, that sounded good. And then you just keep reading. And that's as close as anyone is going to get. So there you go. Saved you an embarrassment in a small group. Just don't stop. Just keep reading, and everyone's going to think you're pretty awesome. So they come in, they get the land. There is so much detail in this book of the Bible. And as I was reading it, what came to mind was an idea. This is a down the line idea. Do not have time for this now. But I think like the next time that I go through the Bible is there's so many names of places in this book. And I think it would be really cool the next time going through the Bible to set up, and I think you can set this up using Google Maps, but essentially kind of do like for each chapter of the Bible, if there's a specific location, kind of link that to a location on Google Maps, so that you can kind of like see the terrain, see the area that this is occurring in, and not just like, oh, here's someone's picture and rendition of it, but like actual drop a pin, go down on Google Maps, and you can view what it looks like at that space. Especially if we have the ruins of the city, we could show that. And I'm pretty sure with Google Maps, you can kind of like bookmarks different sections. So I could go over and click on like Genesis 15, and then it'll show me the locations that are occurring in Genesis 15. And you can go down, look around, move about. And so I think that would be super awesome for a book like Joshua, where I'm reading all these cities and it's just like over my head. It's just like, okay, these cities mean nothing to me. I have no idea where I'm at. You kind of say, my map of Israel is kind of like I know where Judah's at because that's down by Jerusalem and goes between Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea. I know the tribe of Simeon is inside of Judah. Yeah, most of the other ones are north. Like I kind of know a little bit, but not very well. And especially when you get to the cities, I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea what the terrain is like. So I think if I were to spend my next year going through the Bible, really capitalizing on like, all right, what's this location like? And then Google mapping, connecting all those, that would be pretty fulfilling. And it would be a great resource. And that's kind of how I create my stuff is like, what do I get out of it? And then, hey, I can share it to you guys. So just so you know where my mind is at and what I'm thinking about as I read was how do I get more out of this book of Joshua where there's a lot of names? And that was my idea was, okay, what if I could break this down and, okay, now we can actually visualize the known places. I'm sure that there's some towns where we're like, yeah, we have no idea. But there's a few, and that will give you a better picture of like where the Israelites were, kind of you can map it out and get a better feel for the land. And if you spend a whole year kind of focused in on that area and getting to know the locations, I think you would walk away from the Bible being like, oh, I got like a geographical map associated with these stories. I think that would be powerful. So stay tuned next year for when I do that. And keep me accountable for those that are listening. Remind me. Be like, hey, remember you said you'd do that thing? You going to do that thing? And I'll be like, fine, I'll do the thing. I just know if I try to start it now, I would stretch myself too thin. Final thoughts. The book of Joshua. Throw my mind back. Good reminder. Joshua was one of the two spies that came back and said, no, we can totally do this. And the other one was Caleb. So you get a little story there at the end of Caleb, who's like, hey, I've got promised some land because I believed in God. So he gets this land and he says, hey, whoever takes out these people, you can have my daughter. And then I think it's like his nephew does it. Starts with an O. Sorry, my Bible's upstairs. Othniel. See, I'm just going to say it with confidence. You don't know? I'm pretty sure it's like Othniel because that person or their son ends up being one of the first judges. I believe the first judge in the book of Judges. So not all the judges are just random people that pop up. One of them is actually from the line of Caleb. And you can actually see that if you connect those stories. So there you go. And fun fact. Okay, the other thing, I can't believe I didn't think of this. I'm sitting here looking at a paper that says Rahab on it from my other series where we go through characters of the Bible. Rahab is in the beginning of the story. Great story. And cool thing that some people don't realize is Rahab is in the lineage of Jesus. So she was in Jericho, but she saved the two spies. She recognizes, hey, your God is the real God, and they promise that she'll live. So her and her family live. And then it's not explicitly in there, but I believe it's at the end of Ruth. It kind of gives a genealogy. If not, it's definitely in Matthew. Pretty sure Matthew, where Rahab is married to Joshua or Caleb. Oof. Now I'm forgetting who she married. Oh, that is embarrassing. I want to say that it was, or was it a different person altogether? Okay, I think Rahab married a dude named Salmon, I think was his name. He's mentioned a few times in the Exodus. He's the leader of Judah. I think in the Jewish tradition, I think they've had her marrying Joshua or Caleb. But I'm pretty sure in Matthew, it attributes her marrying into a different line. So anyways, she's in that lineage, which is really cool. So her descendants, she's like the great-grandmother or grandmother to Naomi, who is the mother in the story of Ruth. So there you go. A little connection there. If you want to keep following a line that connects all these stories together, it's such a great work. All these stories and how they all connect. The more you dig into it, the more it all connects together. So I hope you guys are getting that. Okay, that is the book of Joshua. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. It was kind of a mix. You had good stories that were like engaging, and then you got lots and lots of lists and where they kind of like partition the land. So some parts were hard to read, but our books are getting shorter. Definitely easier than, say, Genesis. The when we get into 1st and 2nd Samuel, Kings, now we got a bunch of stories. I think that reads a lot easier. So, all right, looking forward to it. I hope you guys are enjoying, and I will catch you guys in the next episode for Judges. Thanks.